Okay, Roger, you ready? Okay, guys, Katie Parker, alcoholic. Hi, guys. I want to keep this ship going because one of the things, I know it's where you just kind of get fried and you're sitting there going, oh my God, I'm trying to stay awake. If you nod off, I don't care. It's just the nature of it. It'll be on CD or thumb drive or download or whatever. I know I always tell the younger generation when I say something, I go, why don't you Google it? Okay, I Google all your stuff. You Google my stuff if it doesn't make sense to you. I'd like to get us through to the 9th step because tomorrow, if you ask me, Charlie will add his 9th step take too. But if you ask me, 10 and 11 are profound. And we'll throw a little 12 in there, but tomorrow will be 10 and 11. I hope you're fresh and ready and you don't have to leave because those are the steps you want to know what's going on. So, Charlie and I do the 4-step a little bit different, and I'm just going to hit the topics of how I do it differently. We still are coming out of the book. We just read it a little differently. That's one of the things that I like about inventory. Oh, there you are. Hi, honey. So the 4-step is that consideration of how self shows up, right? And I quit calling it the expanded 3rd column because people were like, I don't know about that and whatever. And I just say, no, I just am asking you how your self-esteem was affected, how your pride was affected. And it's really interesting how many people don't understand the purpose of inventory or how to do inventory. I clearly did not understand it. I literally listened to inventory for years, up to 17 years, trying to tell people if the person that they're talking about in column 1, they should continue having a relationship with, including family. Yeah, I misunderstood the whole thing. And so I'm sending these people off with this, this person is toxic, this is not a good move, if your father did that, I don't think I'd want to be around him either. I didn't understand anything, and I just wasn't going to read the book. But what really surprises me is when I ask somebody to write a piece of inventory, I try to tell them how I like to see the inventory written based on the book and how I'm going to listen to it, and they still can't get it. They still are misunderstanding what I'm saying. So if this doesn't make sense, feel free to pull me aside and say, okay, now get clear with me on this, Katie, and I can give you examples if you talk to me about someone. And because listening to inventory, if you ask me, is a gift. It is profound. It's profound for both people. And I am always honored that anyone would want to better themselves through inventory. And so this is just kind of the deal. So I'm going to flip through this really fast because I'm going to recap my husband for the first time. We've gone differently, so I get to do that. When it's talking about the 4-step is a consideration of how self shows up, right? I am assertive. We've established that, right? I am assertive. I used to be quite the big mouth. I had no problem taking anybody on. Didn't care who you were, I'm taking you on. Now, well, a lot of people in New Jersey have that same attitude, don't you? Northeast, it's kind of, you're known for that, right? And in Texas, we're kind of like, hey, dude, pull over. You know what I mean? We're aggressive that way, but you guys have this aggressiveness in your tone, and I was just born with it. I don't know why I got it, but I had it. So I'm assertive. When I get scared, I take a step forward. I don't take a step back, and that happens so fast because I'm driven, and I don't really even know I've taken that step forward. The thing that's going to blow you away is I have never been physically hit by a man. Shocking. I'm telling you, it's shocking. It shocks me because I have been in situations that I have pushed people to an edge that they didn't need to be pushed to. And let me tell you, that is not the girl I am today, but that was stone cold sober. I did a lot of that stuff. I like to say, you may be like smoke in a room. You come in stealth, right, and you just fly in the room. This is you scanning the room, checking it out, out of the room. Nobody even saw you. See, the difference between you and me is just that I am assertive and you are not. But as I said earlier, it's as hard for you to speak up as it is for me to shut up. And for you to learn how to speak up, you're going to step in as many holes as I am trying to keep quiet. So don't think it's an easy task for you, because you're going to just get out there and just blurt it out. And everybody's going to go, you're going to, oh, I'm not doing that again. But you will. If you want to be able to have your voice heard, if you are the ego turned inward, the Eeyore, right? Oh, it's just terrible. You don't even like that. I get it. So that's what, when you're working with the ego turned inward, Mark said this, and I don't like it, but he said it. He said sometimes they have to write inventory on themselves. Not a fan of that. But I did have an ego turned inward sponsee, and she did do that, and we got somewhere with it. It was very interesting. I'm not a big fan of you putting yourself in column 1. I think you own column 4, but column 1 is a little tricky. It says it's a life or death errand, right? Talking about launching out on that vigorous course of action, right, is 4 through 9. There's no stopping. Boom, 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 boom. We'll hit it at the very end. It's always that fact-finding. My job is fact-finding. So when I'm listening to inventory, because I think 4 and 5 go like this, when I'm listening to inventory, I always tell somebody how I want to listen to it. I'm not letting them dictate. They always go, you want me to read it? No, I don't want you to read it. I want you to just tell me who's in column 1, what their name is, and what their relationship is, and then tell me the 3 bullet points. That's all you get in column 2. Inventory is designed to be taken quickly. That's the term inventory. So if you go and inventory something, you go, okay, we got 5 cans of corn, 4 cans of peas. You don't go, oh, I remember when I bought those peas. God, that was a special day. Oh, boy, oh, boy. You want to hear about how it was in the grocery store that day? No, we just want to know you got 5 cans of peas. Move on. And so the bullet points are really important, because inventory is designed to be written quickly, not this long pondering thing. So you got column 1, Dad. Column 2, called me bucket mouth, loved my sister more than me, and always shamed me. Boom. We're done with column 2. Now, granted, you write the columns Dad, skip a line, mom, skip a line, sister, skip a line, all of that stuff when you're writing the big inventory. But if you're writing a piece of inventory, I'm going to talk about that. And then you come back up and you write the 3 bullet points for everybody. Then you come back up, you write the self-esteem, pride, ambition, because you're doing it in list. We listed them, but I'm talking about one piece of inventory. So you write the 3 bullet points, because we're going to talk deeply about your relationship with your father, but I just want to know the bullet points that got you so bugged, and then we can go from there. See, a lot of people will put 29 things in column 2, and I think you're missing the point here, because you're looking for more. Okay, and then, oh, yeah, that's right, they did that too. And we're going to get that all out, but if you're not careful, you'll build a tsunami in that second column. And if you can't have somebody listen to that inventory for a week, you're walking around with Pandora's box open. And that's very, very dangerous. I tell people, when I tell you to write a piece of inventory, I'm going to listen, especially if it's a 10th step inventory, I'm going to listen to it this afternoon over the phone. It'll take me about 30, 45 minutes. If I tell you to write an inventory that's more in depth, say you got 3 people on there, I will give you a date. I'll tell you I need to listen to that inventory in 3 days at 2 o'clock. Do you have that time open? I'll make that time open. There's no bailing on me. We're all cutting windows out of our life, unless the kid is sick or you're sick, and that's it. And so that, because you see, you have to have a deadline for sponsees to write inventory. You tell them to write inventory, oh, for God's sakes, they'll take forever. You have to tell them when, and that there's no bailing on the inventory process. So talks about we had to get down to causes and conditions, column 2, column 3, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. Then it says no regular inventory usually goes broke. Well, there's the 10th step. The 10th step is taking regular inventory. Now, Mark had a couple of things I didn't always agree with, and unfortunately, I wasn't as far along as I am today to be able to discuss those with him. So maybe he could give me some clarity, but he's gone, and I don't have clarity on it. But he says that he liked to go through the steps once a year. I'm not a fan of that. I think that gives an opportunity for you to slack. If you're gonna rewrite another inventory every year, I think that's going to hamper your 10th step. I think. I have no experience with it, but I think that. So you do with it what you want. That fact-finding is not fault-finding. right? Very important. It's a fact-finding and a fact-facing. When I'm on that fact-finding, I am acting just like I'm in a courtroom. Okay, so how old was your dad when he got married? How many kids did he come from? Is his parents still alive? I want to know all about your father. I want to know the man that you're so pissed off at. And let's not forget, you're a budding alcoholic. Lovely child to raise, lovely child, right? I mean, come on, have any of you guys had the terrible misfortune to have a child that's one of us? Yeah, it's very painful, isn't it? I mean, you just want to wring their neck and you lay in bed sweating because you're so scared you're going to get a terrible phone call. That's what we were. See, we cannot lose sight of that. This is all so important. My dad was just trying to teach me values and respect and honor, and we fought like this. I mean, we couldn't have a conversation for 2 minutes without arguing. My sister, on the other hand, was more like my mother, and she just went along with my dad, and they had a great relationship. And I was never jealous of it because she never played that game with me. My sister and I are super tight, never played that game with me. She always came to rescue me because she's an untreated Al-Anon. Love that. And, but that's what I mean. So I had all these beliefs about my father, and they just absolutely were not true. The fourth column will turn that second column into a lie. So it's an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade, right? I guarantee your second column is not accurate most of the time. Now, I am stepping away from sexual abuse. That is horrific. That is a whole nother thing. I'm talking about regular inventory. I'm talking about you're mad at your neighbor, you're mad at your sister, you're mad at your dad for not showing up to your baseball games. I'm not talking about sexual abuse. That is a horrific situation, and that we take care of differently. Got me? That's a whole nother ballgame. So please hear me when I'm saying this. I'm not disrespecting how painful that situation was. But this is just your basic inventory of resentment. So if it's an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade, I had a sponsee call me one time, and she said, oh my God, Katie, I'm so pissed off. Somebody sent me this horrible email that just really just attacked my character. Now, I knew this chick very well. And she's a doozy like me. And she's a very aggressive businesswoman, and this was a business email. And what the person said in the email was true. And I knew that. They handled it really poorly and handled it very ugly. And I said, I am so sorry that somebody would write something that direct and ugly. However, and she, of course, 10-stepped it with her husband, and he said, I'll go kick his ass, and she said, oh, no, it was anonymous. I'm sorry, it was an anonymous, which is chicken. It's like, you're going to send something like that and then do anonymous. Go fly a kite. Take some responsibility. If you don't like it, say you don't like it, and let's have a conversation about it. And I said to her, but is there any truth in that email? And I swear she got quiet. She's like, Yes, there is. And I said, well, if they would have said, so-and-so, I really don't like the way you come across at this, and this, and it looks to me to be dishonest, and I think that there could be a better way to handle that. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But that's not what they did. And I said, so if there is some truth in this, that's what we need to talk about, not the fact what this person did. And they're anonymous. You're not going to ever know who it is. So we talked about the character that is actually what she was doing. You see what I mean? Somebody could take that and go, well, that's just ridiculous. Nobody should ever talk to anyone about it. And then we missed the whole point. The whole point was that she needed to swallow and digest that is how she shows up. Okay, so that's pretty important. And then looking at it from an entirely different angle, I know Charlie went down to that. One object, just one, is to disclose damaged and unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. I like this line very much because when you're swallowing and digesting large chunks of truth about yourself, be very careful. You come into most inventory self-righteous, right? Can you believe? Look what they did. They have wronged me. The alcoholic, that's our big flag. Wronged over here. And because of that attitude, we have to realize that once I see this from an entirely different angle, once I understand, first of all, that I'm a hypocrite, once I understand that I may have done this exact thing to another person, I go then down to self-pity. So we got to be very careful not to go from self-righteous to self-pity. We want to go from self-righteous to swallowing and digesting. And as the fifth step says, be delighted that we know our Creator better. We're slowly subtracting all that trash. But if you're not careful, you're going to go to, somebody in a meeting says, I have to do a 4-step, and what's the noise you hear? Oh. We should be going, good for you. Wait till you get through that, man. It's going to be great. You see, we've got this stigma that the 4-step is terrible. It's not terrible. It is the key to your future. It is the greatest thing in the world. I look forward to writing inventory because I don't want to be in the bondage of self another day. I want to meet the world. I'm walking down the hall and I get to talk to the Father. He walks out right at the same time. I mean, that man's got a spirit. There's something about him that's pretty doggone special. And I mean, when he talks, he's got my attention. And we just stood there and talked, and I was in a hurry. I needed to get up to the room. I knew Jimmy was going to get mad at me. And I was going to hear Jimmy going, Katie, get over here. And but I thought, you know what? This was meant to be. I'm going to give it 3 to 5 minutes, just going to do it. See, that's the kind of stuff I don't want to miss. And when you're present, which takes a lot of work, guys, just because I'm talking about it, you can't just do it. It takes a lot of discipline. We had a meeting at the house with all the guys from Man to Man, and Charlie pulls me aside. I'm always so honored when he wants my input. And he says, Katie, what do you think the meeting should be on? I said, well, I'm always a fan of the 10th step. It's the greatest step in the whole wide world. And he goes, yeah, but we always talk about that. And Chris Schroeder was standing there. So we talked about what our disciplines looked like. Right, and what that was going to be, and Charlie said, I'd like to start it off and then hand it off to you, Katie. And there's a lot of power in that room. There was some big heavy hitters in AA. People are like, there are no heroes in AA. Whatever. There was a lot of heroes in AA. I stand on the shoulders of a lot of heroes. You know what I mean? They went ahead of me. They changed my life. They saved my life, being the vessel to get me connected to the power. You bet your butt there are, and there's some real pain in the asses too. You know what I mean? And for them, I'm very grateful because I have to write inventory and learn more about myself. But it was interesting because the book says we alcoholics are undisciplined. God disciplines us in this very way. And actually 3 of them, and 2 that I was surprised, said, I'm not a fan of the word discipline. I'm like, what? I can't even wrap my brain around that, because if we are having trouble with a word, we don't get to skip over it. That word is the key. And I understand there's a lot of terminology I don't care much for, but that doesn't mean I get to go, yeah, I'm not going to use that one. It's a matter of looking at what this is about. If you are undisciplined, you've got to start working on asking God to help you get disciplined. It's crucial in life. You will struggle in many areas. If you can't get out of bed, you're going to have to ask God to help you with that. If you can't get your kids to where they need to be on time, you can't get to work on time, you have got to get disciplined, because what ends up happening is you start your day by setting yourself up to be pissed. Right out of I can't do my morning time, I can't do this, I can't do that, because you're undisciplined. And they want to change it to another word. I swear I was frustrated that I started. I thought, I want to double dip. Can you come back to me? Because I'm having trouble with this right here. See what I mean? You don't even realize that you've dismissed something, and you've dismissed something. I want to know if I'm doing that. And I've got people in my life that will point out things to me so I can see that. I don't want to live like that. I got a window of time left. I'm clearly, Charlie likes to say, we're on the back 9. I just don't want to be on the 18th hole, okay? I'm clear I'm on the other side, but I'd like to last for a little while. So if the owner of a business is to be successful, he can't fool himself about values, right? So it's just the guys that want to be successful. So what are your values? They are your old ideas. Your old ideas, remember, are typically good. So don't fool yourself about your value. That's one of the things when I sponsor, and please don't misunderstand this. When I get to decide if I'm going to sponsor you. okay? I ask God, he says yes. If he says no, and I have that pause when agitated or doubtful, then I pass you on to someone else. And I take that into a lot of prayer before I just pass you off. I ask a lot of questions about you. You and I may have a 20-minute conversation, maybe 40 minutes. I'm going to take it into prayer, and I'm going to have an answer within an hour or two. But if he says that I have to sponsor you, I have got to be sure one thing. When it comes to your sex life, I cannot sponsor you if you have more than one partner in a marriage. And I can't sponsor you if you're on both squads. It's too far outside my value system. And nowadays, the two squads is a pretty common, comfortable thing. And it's also a whole lot of work for me. Because you're with the boy, and now you're with the girl. Then you're with the boy, and now you're with the girl. And that's all we're talking about is your deal. And in the inventory, it says you can't fool yourself about value. Right? And it says that we can't use our sex powers lightly or loath. There are plenty of people that will sponsor you. I just can't. So you have to know that, guys. You have to know what you can and can't take. Don't fool yourself that, well, they asked me and I got to do it. There's a lot of things that happen in a relationship of inventory. And I tried it. And first of all, the third party, I can't do it all. That's just, to me, crazy. I'm not going to have a conversation about it's three people in a marriage. Don't even get me there. I tried, and I can't do this. I want you to pick a squad, whatever squad you want to be on, I'm fine with. You know what I mean? I got no problem with whatever squad you want, but I can't do all the squads. It can't be that. We are just a mess in that area. So that's something that I do. And, I had one girl come up, take such issue with it. I'm like, please, write a piece of inventory. I don't have a problem with it. You do. But that's what's very important to understand, that sometimes we just can't sponsor everybody. There's certain things. Charlie talked about the third column. Now, this is how I do the third column. Don't get lost in this translation, because it'll be on CD. And if you want, you can email me and just ask me for all my stuff, and I'll send you just a whole bunch of stuff on how I do it. I do have a new email address, so it's on my card over here. But in column 3, I want you to put self-esteem. You're going to put self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relationships, sex, and money, right? Just like the book says. All I'm asking you is how. So it's different than the way Charlie does it. Charlie does all his work in the sick man prayer. We get to the same mountaintop. We just do it differently. We hear it differently. So your self-esteem is the value you've placed on yourself. It's an I am statement. It's not an I am feeling. It's an I am statement. I am a good mother. I am a bad mother, right? I need to know if your self-esteem is high or low in this particular situation with the person in column 1. Your pride is the way I see that others view me. No one should, could, or would, right? Think of pride like this. What? Right? That's what pride is. Your pride just bows up and just tells you, I'm not doing that, right? And so, or your pride can be very shallow and low. And then your security and your ambitions are your wants and your needs. I want and I need. The security, which I always believe is the God-given, is the one that I like to look at deeply, because it's truly like, I want my sister and I to get along. And my needs are, she needs to do A, B, and C in order for me to be okay. We will fight, we will die trying to get that third column met. Personal relationships are your deep-seated beliefs about something. Parents should, husbands are. Children must, right? Is that making sense? It's black and white, black and white. And what you see is, here's one, husbands shouldn't take advantage of their wives. And I go, okay, that's a good one. So have you ever taken advantage of your husband? Does it go both ways, or is that a one-way street? Right? Because that's typically what it is. Well, of course I have. Now, I don't do it like he does it. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Give me a minute. I'll give you another pop, 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 pop. Oh, my God. Okay, I'm starting to see this. Let me sit down. So that's the deep-seated personal relationships. Sex and money, I don't always work with those unless your money's affected. And I don't typically work with the sex the way Dan Sherman did. Dan Sherman always involved sex as real men and real women. I don't do it that way. I only do it if actual sex relationship was involved. So that's just me. Let's see. We searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us, we consider self's common manifestations. Isn't that interesting? So now we're getting into self, which is the fourth column. On page 66, to conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. Isn't that interesting? That's it. We did column 1 and 2 on the bar stool. People would say, what are y'all talking about? Solving the problems of the world. Give us a minute. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. That's just where we live. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. That's where we get delusional. See, I think if I go and confront my dad about how badly he screwed my life up, which I did at 10 years sober, because I was doing codependency group therapy. I'm not blaming them. I learned a ton out of that stuff, a ton. But I also never learned the fourth column. So when I decided to tell my dad how upset I was at him, he was sitting on the couch. He was a retired engineer for U.S. Steel and Union Carbide, but he'd also played NFL football, so he was very stiff. And he turned and he looked at me and he goes, you know, I effed up, Kate, I effed up. Okay, I effed up. And I remembered thinking, and I'd never seen this line in my life, I remember thinking, golly, I thought this was going to go different. And I knew that I'd pushed him over the limit, because that's what I did to my dad. I was relentless with my father. And he knew he screwed up. When my mom died, he married 3 times in an 18-month period, and we had 4 live-in housekeepers. And he was desperately trying to find a mother for us. You know, I'm 8, Liz is 9, Mike is 12. And we ran, 7 women through the house in an 18-month period. Yeah, I know, it's because we were little shitheads. Let's call it what it is, right? Yeah, it wasn't the Cleaver family. I mean, we ran those people out. And my dad, he said one time he landed in Chicago and they got a phone call because back then, no cell phones. And he said, one of the housekeepers says, I'm leaving, I'm done. And he took that plane back. And it was terrible. And we just thought it was so funny. But so when it says, so I remembered thinking it was going to go so much differently. There's the delusion, right? Life's not coming at me, it's coming from me. And that's a big one, man. That's where we think, you don't understand, man, every time I wake. It's coming from me because it's the law. I attract what I think and feel. And we get into the law in 10 and 11 beautifully. And I love where it says we turned back to the list for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. I ask that question when I'm listening to inventory. So I'm on that fact-finding mission in that second column. I'm fact-finding, fact-finding, fact-finding. And and you're on a fact-facing when I'm really getting down to what it is. And so when we're willing to look at this from an entirely different angle, we begin to see that the world and its people really do dominate us. In that state, the wrongdoings of others, fancy to real, had the power to actually kill. They are not mincing any words here. Kill. They don't say piss you off or damage you or frustrate you. They have the power to kill. All of us know what the bondage of self feels like, where you literally can hardly breathe. You are beside yourself with emotion. And this is a very, very difficult spot to be in, I'm telling you. And to think the drink isn't too far down the road is mistaken. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We couldn't wish them away any more than alcohol. Isn't that interesting? See, I'm going to get pissed. I don't have the dubious luxury of staying angry. And that especially justifiable resentment, whoever came up with that term, there is no such thing. And secondly, it's forgiveness. It's always forgiveness. I'd rather have to make the amends than forgive because I don't forgive well. I mean, I got 9 books on forgiveness and I keep score. And when you trip, I'm like, oh. You know what I mean? I struggle in the forgiveness area, struggle. It still is a bit of a struggle, but I'm better than I've ever been, but it's still a very big struggle. This was our course, right? We launched out on this course of vigorous action. We realized the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Even though we didn't like their symptoms, column 2, the way they disturbed us, column 3, they, like ourselves, so there's the hypocrite, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and compassion and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. I could be either person in this show. I'm telling you, 99% of the time, that's what it's all about. This sick man prayer, page 67, you hit that pretty well, didn't you, honey? I was right to the sex inventory. Okay, that's right to the sex inventory. I'm sorry, I'm going over more than I thought I would. Okay, page 67. We avoid argument and retaliation. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy the chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people. Very important to remember. See, I told you, I can't be helpful to all people. If it's too far outside my value system, I'm not the gal for you. You got to talk to somebody who gets that. I don't. But at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done. Try that. That's a tough one. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done. We resolutely look for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? The situation had not been entirely our fault. We tried to disregard the other man entirely. When I'm calling Marty do an inventory on Charlie, she'll say, okay, honey, we have to disregard the other man entirely. I'm like, so you're telling me I got to get out of column 2? Because I'm loving it, man. Let's just stay in column 2. And thank God she does that, because you have to disregard the other person entirely and look at my faults and my mistakes, not my part. My part is a term that is not used in our book. And it's a tough one. So that 4th column, I like to break down selfish in the 5 ways that self shows up. Once again, this will all be on CD or tab or whatever it is. I like to look at self-righteous, I'm better than, self-reliance, how I run the show, self-pity, poor me, less than, not fair, self-seeking, how I make getting my way happen, self-centered, why I want it to go my way. So do you see the 5 ways of self? Because you know what I want to know? I want to know how I show up when Charlie makes me angry. How do I show up when Chad doesn't do what I want him to do? See, I don't want to know that I'm selfish and self-centered. I want to know how, so that I know what I'm looking for to take into my evening review. I know what I'm looking for throughout the day. I've written so many inventories on doing talks and doing this and doing that I know when somebody says something that I don't agree with, that I don't take a step forward. I consider what they're saying. I actually take that to somebody, and I would take it to Chad or Charlie, or I'd call Marty, because they've disturbed me like I've disturbed them. So I have to see these things so that I consider, could I have done that differently? And because you see, I don't want to go through life causing problems. I'm tired of it. I am really tired of being the sheriff. I'm tired of rescuing every dog I see, every cat I see, every bird I see. I'm going somewhere fun, and there's a bird with a broken wing. Okay, let's pull it over. Pull it up. Get the bird in a box, make the phone calls, you know. I mean, in my world, I rescued everything I saw. If I saw a kid standing there, now that, well, I will still pull over. I'm like, okay, where's the parent? Where is the parent? And the parent walks out. I'm like, little stink eye, we're going on. The kid was too close to the curb. Dishonest is 3 forms of dishonesty. Did you go over these? 3 forms of dishonesty: straight out lying, and we all do. Are we with you on that one? We all lie. White lie, little lie, not the whole truth. Second one, right? Just a little bit of omission. Second one. And the third one is believing the delusion. See, the delusion is your mind telling you something that's just not true, but I believe it. And then frightened is always my fear, so it's always going to go into my old ideas, right? So frightened, whenever I'm frightened, now Charlie's fear, oh my God. Chad, we were at a conference one time, and Charlie had this girl off in the corner, and Chad goes, oh, Katie, I think he's doing this. He's doing the sphere. And I swear to God, I'm like this. Oh, my God. You want to go get something to eat, because that'll take forever. I do not know why I don't get it. It changed her life. You remember they were sitting on that fountain oh my gosh. And I just thought, I just don't understand that sphere, because I can't control anything. Really can't. I can think I can, but I can't control anything. And if I get scared, like I said, I take a step forward. Now when I get scared, I can write a fear inventory. And let me tell you something about that fear inventory. It says that short word somehow touches about every aspect of our life. It was an evil and corroding thread. That's pretty powerful. Fear will destroy us, right? It really, resentment is fear in drag. I mean, it really is, because it's easier for me to look at resentment. To look at fear, I'm like, whatever. I'm really not that scared. I'm pretty straightforward. I got this. Well, once I started, one of my sponsees said, Katie, I love the fear inventory. And I said, really? I go, well, then you bring it, man. I don't see fear. I just see resentment. She brought this fear inventory straight out of the book. It comes in all my stuff if you want it. So we have the fear and why I have it, column 1. And then we have self-reliance, how I show up with self-reliance to get that fear to go away. See, I want to once again know how I show up when I get scared in column 1. So if I get scared that my kids might be getting a divorce, let me tell you, that scares the crap out of me. And isn't that funny? I mean, how many of us have been married more than once? Raise your hand. Yeah, there you go. Quite a few. Yeah, we just kind of do that. Danny, you been married more than once? Okay, it's the wave back there. Wah, 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 wah. I love me some Danny. But if I'm worried about that, you know why I'm worried? First of all, I'm scared to death for their well-being. Their emotional well-being could go really down the tubes. Secondly, I'm afraid they're going to need me to help with the grandkids way more than I want to help with the grandkids. Let's talk the truth here. And then third, I am just going to have complete unrest of who they're going to pick next. I like the one they had, and I raised the kids, so I know their defects of character, so I want to change them. I mean, you could just go crazy down that list of what the fear is and how I show up self-reliant. And then I have to say what the truth is, because the truth is God will take care of them. He'll make it through this divorce. Most people make it through divorce. It's terrible, it's ugly, it's painful, but they'll make it through this divorce. So I look at all the truths that really go on. They've got good character. I raised them well. I taught them a lot. I was that kind of mom. I was a disciplinary. I did all the things I was supposed to do. And then the fourth column is what, God's will. And so then I write the love letter from God. And God writes this amazing love letter in a fear inventory. He goes into saying, he always calls me my child. These are my children. These are not my grandchildren. I will take care of their hearts. Their life will be tough, but it will level out. And I mean, it just becomes this beautiful fourth column. And it just goes, you just go, I let all that wind out of my sails. And then I take that fear inventory on awakening all the time. I have to remind myself all the time of what that inventory said. Then we go into the sex inventory. The sex inventory is really a doozy. It's, let me get to it here. We put it on paper. Now, sex inventory, I also consider it a conduct inventory, right? This conduct inventory is about because not everybody has sex problems. You're in a marriage, it's the way it is. Everything's going, hunky-dory. You got a little trouble here, you got some troubles here. But overall, we're going to look at sex inventory eventually as a conduct inventory, because that's really what the book is talking about. And it just has an emphasis on sex. So a conduct inventory is how I show up as a sister, how I show up as a mother, how I show up as an employer, an employee, a sponsor, a sponsee. You can go through all those questions and ask the same thing about conduct, because we're looking at how we show up. Hold on. Many of us need an overhauling here. The word overhauling means to examine thoroughly. We are not the arbiter of anybody's sex conduct. Trust me, that's one of the reasons why I can't do that inventory, or I can't sponsor that, because I can't stop myself from being the arbiter of that. So please don't judge me harshly for that one. It just doesn't work for me. And it may work fine for someone else. It's like somebody that's got strong religious beliefs trying to sponsor an atheist. It's a very challenging little hurdle there. Now, you're certainly welcome to try it if you want to, but you'll find that you'll be writing a lot of inventory on that person because they're frustrating the heck out of you. You can't get them to turn that corner. So when we're looking at these 9 questions, we have to realize, where had we been selfish? Once again, I'm looking for exactly where had I been selfish. So what is selfish? Self-seeking, self-reliant, self-centered, self-righteous, self-pity. I want to know all 5 of the ways that self shows up so I can see this. My dishonest, inconsiderate. I didn't consider you at all. See, I think, Charlie and I disagree with this one. Inconsiderate and thoughtless. Inconsiderate, I never considered you. Thoughtless, you never even crossed my mind. Okay? So inconsiderate, I did not consider you. I thought about you, but I didn't consider you. Oh, I just said those 2 backwards. Okay, inconsiderate, well, we just disagree. So he's not the one to ask that question to. So one of them, the words are not working for me. One of them, I didn't consider you. One of them, I thought about you and did it anyway. Okay? Whom had we hurt? Now, lots of times in sex inventory, when you're actually doing it on, we're not looking for all the people you had sex with. Oh my God, if you had consensual sex, they shouldn't even make your inventory. We're not looking for that. We're looking for when the sex powers were used to harm. You know, some of us in early sobriety would suck up to somebody to get their money, their dry goods, their home, a lot of things like that. Now, when it comes to the amends process, you wouldn't go back to them and say, you know, I'm sorry, I just used you. That would be very thoughtless, right? So what you'd want to do is you'd want to go back to them and say, I did not show up in this relationship with any emotional, what's the way I say it? I did not, thank you, I was unavailable emotionally for you in this relationship, and you can add a couple more things. You know, you don't want to tell somebody you just used them. That's making it worse. And we do that a lot. We lead a lot of people on all the time. Where did I unjustifiably arouse jealousy? That happens in a lot of marriages. I mean, sometimes it's like, so if you got an overly protective, jealous wife or husband, they're going to have to do some work on that eventually. But it doesn't help that I'm over there talking to somebody really handsome or laughing and slapping them on the shoulder, or I'm having a texting conversation with the opposite sex. I do have to control some of that, but then they have to do their work also, right? That's a tricky one. That jealousy, suspicion, and bitterness, I am not a fan of any time we know when we're doing that. Do I need to go any further? Yeah, we know when we're pushing the envelope. And my sponsor says, you recoil as if it were a hot flame. You know that's wrong, and you stop that nonsense. We don't mess around in that area. If you continue, it's one time in the book, or the second time in the book, it tells you you will drink. We're not theorizing. This is troublesome. And if you got away with it once, you're really going to be in trouble because you think you can get away with it again and again and again. It's very difficult. Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? Where were we at fault? I think that one's a really tricky one because, you know, I shouldn't have probably gone home with him is not really what we're looking for here. We're looking for a little bit more depth. It's going to have to be a little bit more creative than that. It's a tricky, those two are very tricky. I think the what should we have done instead is really what our sane and sound ideal is to look like. See, our sane and sound ideal is not for me to have Mr. Perfect. My sane and sound ideal is how I am going to show up in this relationship. I want to know I'm going to show up as a woman of integrity. I'm not going to sit there and text with somebody. I'm not going to be inappropriate. I'm not going to put myself in a situation that would make my husband uncomfortable. I've never really been that girl anyway in sobriety. In drinking, I really did have some values. I did start to step outside of them towards the end of my drinking, though. I'll tell you that. The old I'm not going to sleep with a married man, once you do it once, you're like, well, we already broke the seal. Come on. I mean, that one was, I was just, I'm not going to do that. And, needless to say, that went by the wayside. So we're writing that sane and sound ideal. It's based on my selfish behavior and how could I become a better person through God's help. If sex is troublesome, let me tell you something. If you got a sponsee or for yourself, if you're on breaking up, going back, breaking up, going back, breaking up, going back, you better have a host of sponsees. And if you don't have a host of sponsees, go to a treatment center and start carrying the message and start working with them, because it says if sex is troublesome, we throw ourselves harder into working with others. It doesn't fix the problem, it just gets your mind off of it. So you don't have that. I mean, we get crazy behind relationships. Crazy, crazy, crazy. The 10th step is that we continue that 4 through 9, right? To continue to take personal inventory. Now, I know you guys are getting tired. Hang in there with me. I want to talk about the man on page 72 and 73. This is for the guy who's not doing the 10th step, not writing inventory. I always like to say, if you hadn't written inventory in the last 3 months, that's just too long. It just is. You gotta just go, okay, I heard what she said. I'm not going to go, whatever. If you go whatever, you miss the whole boat here. You just got to start writing inventory much more frequently in your evening review especially. I scribble out inventory in my evening review probably 3 times a week. And one of the beauties of that is I don't even have to take it to Marty, because I already saw what I needed to see. I've already seen where I've made decisions based on self. I've seen where I've put myself in harm's way. I've seen all of that. So I think that you should be writing inventory frequently, but let's start with at least once every 3 months and then begin to work that down. So listen to what happens if you don't do this. Bottom of page 72 says, now this is the one word I'd like to change in the big book. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. I wish that just said members instead of newcomers, because all of a sudden I go, oh, I'm not a newcomer. I can dismiss the whole rest of this. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they've turned to easier methods. What are easier methods? Pornography, gambling, food. For women, having children, spending money, right? Buying clothes, doing whatever. We find, and don't get me wrong, women turn to sex too. We are no, spring chickens here. But, I mean, these are where we turn to. And the next thing you know, they get out of hand, and we think we need another 12-step program for them. No. The book says it'll solve all our problems. So I strongly encourage you to work the AA program and see if it won't take care of those areas. Those are exercise, taking on some sort of crazy, I'm going to become a CrossFitter and, do the CrossFit games and, you know what I mean? Fine. But watch the way we do it. I mean, we plow into it head on. So they are easier methods than writing inventory. Picking up that pen is tough. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, right, sponsoring people and, talking around the country, doing whatever you need to do, working with sponsees, but they're not doing their own work. It's very easy to fall into this trap. How do I know? Because I did that too. Marty and I talk about how seductive sponsorship is. Next thing you know, you're sponsoring and you are a hero. And you're not doing squat of your own. They wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. You never stop cleaning your house. Could you imagine if you stopped cleaning your house? Oh, if you got a dog, God, you got to vacuum every 2 days. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. I think some people think that this is only based on secrets. No. Secrets are a big deal. You keep a secret, you got trouble. But you better be darn sure that whoever you're telling can keep your secret. I've seen people spill some beans, and they shouldn't be spilling the beans. So you want a closed-mouth sponsor that's going to keep that to themselves. I'm a vault. It says they hold on to the worst item in stocks. They only thought, and the word thought is italicized. Big deal. They only thought they'd lost their egotism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find necessary until they told someone all their life story. Now, all is 5 minutes ago for me. That's right up to this very moment. Oh, now it's another 6 minutes ago. Okay, you see what I mean? All my story is not just childhood to when I walked through the doors of AA. All is my story. More than most, the alcoholic leads a double life. Now, let me tell you, these are the people I get phone calls from all the time. Oh, my God, they're leading a double life, and they are just over there just whacking themselves. They can't even believe it. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. Mark did a lot of work with stage characters, right? I'm in the gym, I'm the fitness person. I'm at the grocery store, I'm the mother. I'm at this, I'm that. I'm at PTA, I'm the greatest mom in the world. When I'm driving the bus, I'm the best bus driver. This stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation. Here it comes. But he knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it, right? That's the guy that's the hypocrite. He knows he's not doing what he needs to do, and he's telling his sponsees to do it. And he knows, and he goes, gosh, I can't tell him that I'm not doing it, so I'll just do it. Oh, good luck. That should turn you around, right? Wish it worked that easy. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees, right? I mean, when you're driven, have you guys ever gone out and just blown a ton of cash that you didn't have? And you just go out and just blow it, and then you're just deeply depressed. Or how about binge watching TV till 3 in the morning? You know you need to go to bed, go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. Click, one more, I can do it. Right? I mean, the sprees are just endless what we can do. Come into his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. Stone cold sober. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone may have observed him. Have you ever lost your stuff in public and you're screaming at somebody behind the counter and then you look around and you go, anybody from AA here? Whew, okay. Nobody saw me, right? As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. See, that's what we do. Wouldn't it be great if we just thought we just vented? I just needed to vent. Oh, God, well, that doesn't work for me, but the delusion makes me think it does. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension, and that makes for more, it says drinking, I say thinking. So you're just shoving that stuff farther down and farther down and farther down. And you can't figure out why you're blowing your stack. And that's so profound and so true. So I call it the man on page 73. Then we go over to page 75. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. You see what I mean? Here's where we're talking about don't go from self-righteous to self-pity. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but we now begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. Why would we ever want the new guy to wait 6 months to do inventory? It's getting ready to tell you here, too, at the end of, flip back over, if you got your book over to page 70. Listen to what the book is trying to tell me. After the sponsee has written inventory, this is what they should know after they've written inventory. Not that they've done their fifth step. At the bottom of page 70, the second paragraph from the bottom, if we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we've written down a lot. We've listed and analyzed our resentments. Really? We're expecting a lot out of that new guy, aren't we? We've begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. Really? Some people are like, the new guy, they can't even do the fourth column. I'm like, I think they can. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill towards all men, even our enemies. For we look on them as sick people. We've listed the people we have hurt, by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, we read again and again, faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. If you've already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you've made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Isn't that interesting what they expect us to see? Don't underestimate the new guy. He can get quite a bit of that there. You may need to help him in certain areas. I get that. So we go back over to page 75. Trust me, we're not going much longer. Just hang in there. We feel we were on this broad highway walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Now, this is where Mark was profound in the hour after the fifth step. Or the hour of the fifth step, right? So we've done the whole fifth step. I've gone through the whole inventory. I prefer the person not write 42 resentments, 39 fears, and 15 sex. You will never do a vigorous course of action with that. I am interested currently at what bugs you. So let's keep that down to about 10 or 12 for right now. If you want to get through an inventory with the new guy, I like to keep him within 10 or 12 resentments, 10 or 12 fears, and 10 or 12 sex. I can get that in 4 hours. And then once we take you through the whole process, I give you a couple of weeks to make those amends. Let's write another 10 or 12, 10 or 12, 10 or 12, 10 or 12. Because I'm not interested in what Johnny did in the second grade to you. If he's still making your inventory, we are just trying to find the problem. You know what I mean? So there's really a lot. People don't always agree with that, but I'm like, man, you will not get through that inventory. This is a vigorous course. So if you got to meet with them 3 times, the first 10 people we just did, the ego has rebuilt and you're back pissed off at your mom and dad. We need you out there making those amends. And the process is really, really important behind that. So it says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. Carefully reviewing what we have done, we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Can you see how you stay out of that self-pity? Because that's a really tough spot to be in. Taking this book down from the shelf, I don't know why it's on the shelf, but the book says it is, and Charlie does it, and to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we've omitted anything. For we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. That's really important. Is our work solid so far? This is the whole hour you're taking. You don't want to just, willy-nilly through these things, because when you're reading those first 5 proposals, that's the first 5 steps. You're going through understanding if you are, in fact, alcoholic. Do you believe you have the allergy and the mental obsession? Is drinking unmanageable? Not your life, is your drinking unmanageable? Second step, God, you could just stay in We Agnostics for 20 minutes. There's so much in there. Third step, reread it. Go back through. Ask yourself the questions. Turn statements into questions. And then you look at your 4th step. I personally tell anybody that writes a piece of inventory, I hope you take that inventory into at least the next week of On Awakening and your evening review. How did you do with these things? You just spent this time doing all this work. Don't just walk away and go, God, now I can go to Starbucks. You know what I mean? Really give it what it's required. Have we skimped on the cement putting in the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar out of sand? If we can answer to our satisfaction after 1 hour. See, I thought you just kind of sat there and, do. We look at the 6th step. Once again, now the 6th step is pretty profound. Some people think they need to go to the 12 and 12. If you go to the 12 and 12, whatever. It's not really what we're supposed to do. We've just spent the first 75 pages understanding how self shows up. If you can't figure out what your defects of character are by now, you kind of missed a large piece of what our work is. So I believe that the 6th step, I think people panic because it's only 1 paragraph. Well, listen to this. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are you really willing to go to any length to get this relationship with your Creator? And the benefit is you won't have to drink or do any outside issues. See, this is huge. It says, are we now ready to let God remove from us all things which we have admitted are objectionable? Is this objectionable? How you have treated your father, is that objectionable? You bet. I missed all of this. I did the inventory after my dad passed. I did the one I needed to do. I'm looking at all these relationships, answering these questions in depth. I have all the things that are objectionable in my life. Taking a step forward, being the sheriff of the world, yelling at my kids. Oh my God, I don't know about you guys, but my maiden name was Ostermiller, and we just called ourselves the Oster Yellers. It was whoever could yell the loudest got their point across. And I mean, that does not work in the Parker family. They are a group of wordy people. They like words and museums. Words are important, Katie. I'm like, oh, whatever. And so you start yelling in this family, and you are going to lose a digit, okay? It doesn't work, and it worked in mine. Well, it doesn't work in theirs, so I better surrender it, because it wasn't going to get pretty. He's very crafty with words, and I can't be that crafty. I go to F you so fast. It's ugly. It's not the best, but it's what I did, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work in their family either. So, and it really taught me something. It's not the best line of defense. Can we now take them all, everyone? If we still cling to something we will not let go of, we ask God to help us be willing. There's going to be stuff you're not willing to let go of, even though you're aware of it. Totally okay. Just gave you an out right there. You're just not, you hadn't had your brains beaten out enough. Once your brains are beat out enough, you will go, okay, I am willing, take my bloody hands off of it. Now, guys, I know this is going to kill you, but we're going to go for about another 15 minutes. If you can hang in there. If you got to get up and go to the bathroom, totally fine. But I got to get us through the 9th step so that Charlie can add to it tomorrow. So the 7th step is a beautiful prayer. We end our meeting with the 7th step prayer. When ready, we say something like this. My Creator, once again, I love that term. I am now willing that you should have all of me, the good and the bad. Why does it say the good and the bad? I think it's because I can't differentiate the true from the false. Or alcoholic life is the only normal one. See, that doesn't mean just drinking. It could say alcoholism life is the only normal one. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We've just then completed step 7. Now remember, we're on this vigorous course of action. And this vigorous course of action is when you write your 4-step, I give you 2 weeks to get it done, the new guy. 2 weeks to get it done. I've already decided what date it is. You got to earmark 4 hours with me and then an extra hour for the 5th step. By the time we finish, I send you home to do the hour in the 5th step. Look at the 6th step, what's objectionable, say the prayer in the 7th step, make the list in the 8th step, and then begin the amends the next day. There is no sitting on 6 and 7. This vigorous course of action is telling you, you must move, move, move. Why? Because the ego rebuilds, and the next thing you know, you're back pissed off at these people again. If you don't go make that amends, you don't button it up. And it is imperative that you do not balk on this step. Very easy to balk on the 9th step. And we're always so afraid of doing the 9th step and going back and asking for forgiveness or admitting our faults or whatever the case may be. I always encourage you, don't go make an amends till you've run it past your sponsor, because a lot of people go make an amends and then have to make another one for screwing it up. So you don't go out there thinking you got this. But the truth of the matter is most speakers, when they speak, their most touching stories are the amends. And we'll put those aside and not do them. And I did all that. I did all of that. It says, now we need more action. You see where it's never stopping. Without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. See, action, 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 action. There's no sitting on 6. I think people think they sit on 6 because they're trying to fix their character defects. Have you ever heard somebody in a meeting saying, I'm working on my defects? You're like, yeah, they don't get it. And I did the same thing. I said it myself. I am not pointing the finger at anybody. I mean, I said it. Now I hear it. It kind of sounds like, nails on a chalkboard, because I can't necessarily go over there and straighten them out. But it's hard for me. We have listed all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. And I'm not going to get into that. Charlie doesn't always agree with that line that not everybody on your inventory needs an amends. I personally think they do. But we subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. Have you ever heard somebody say, I swept off my side of the street? That is, that we try to sweep away the debris with, to the man we hate, where it says we've swept off our side of the street. Though I'm telling you what, when you go to make an amends to somebody, you have to take 100% responsibility. There is no side of the street unless it's to the man you hate. So that's somebody you can't stand and they can't stand you. And you're trying to say to them that I have to go to you because I won't get over drinking. You don't say that to your mother or your sister or your brother. That's just to the man you hate because he can't figure out why you're there. You hate each other. Has anybody ever gone to the man they hate? Oh, yeah, it's moving. I just had a sponsee in a lawsuit, and I swear to God, when I heard what she was doing, she would not mind me all sharing this, I knew it was going to end so horribly. And I kept trying to tell her to wake up, to see this is, they get to do what they're doing. It's their property. And the next thing you know, 4 years later, it's in court. I mean, it was terrible. You couldn't stop it. It was just a runaway train. And not only was she in court, she had to do a deposition because they had to have a settlement. And she said she could not believe she had finally gotten to a surrender because she had her teeth kicked in. I mean, terribly. She's just like me, just strong, aggressive woman. And she said, Katie, it was the most moving experience ever. She said, it cost me a lot of money. But the woman and I hugged and said that we were both so sorry for what had happened. All over some trees. 4 years. Over trees. I'm telling you, when we're driven, and we just blow up the world. You know what I mean? But isn't that wonderful? The woman cried, said, I'm so sorry, I wish you were still here. They ended up selling the house. I mean, it was just like the snowball going down the hill. And if she were here, she'd tell you the story because it's pretty doggone moving. If we haven't the willingness to do this, we ask until it comes. There are people that you will not have the willingness to do it. You just keep asking. Don't think you cannot ask and you get the answer. You have to ask to get the answer. Remember, it was agreed in the beginning we'd go to any length for victory over alcohol. Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel different about going to some of them in a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature of our first approach. Now, I'm going to share a couple of my amends stories with you, and then we're going to call it a day. I made my amends from drinking, and there was plenty of them. But I have made way more amends in untreated alcoholism than I ever thought I needed to do. When I came out of untreated alcoholism, I felt like my head popped out of the sand, and I was like, where am I? All I saw was my faults and my mistakes. I was so blown away. And when I was driving the school bus, oh my gosh, I pushed the envelope on the school bus. I'd been self-employed most all my life, and I didn't even know what having a boss was like. And I had to have this job, and my boss man was just a good man. He was a man of integrity. I just loved him. And one day after Joe got sick, and it's 2 weeks into this job, the next thing you know, my husband has a brain tumor, and I'm out of work for 2 weeks because we're in the hospital having the brain surgery. We never left that emergency room. So imagine what they were already dealing with 2 weeks into me having this job. They probably saw that I needed the insurance. That was never discussed. And so I am in this crazy state of mind, and I realized that I could make my bus job even shorter if I switched routes with another guy, and the money didn't change hands because I didn't need the money. I made plenty of money in my fitness business. I didn't need the money, so I wanted to work less and still get the insurance. One of my checks one time was 32 cents, if that tells you. Yeah, and I framed it because it was just talked about how his brain surgery was probably $500,000. So I made a lot of money driving that bus, paid for all my bills. And so I went to my bus boss and I said, hey, listen, I got an idea. Is it okay if I switch with so-and-so and he can take my morning route to Forest Trails and then I don't have to do that route and I can come in here and it saves, there's no money changing hands. It's all the same amount of money. And he looks at me and he goes, Katie, I'm the boss. I'm the one who makes those decisions and decides what to do. And I swear to God, I thought, oh, that's true. What do you think? And he goes, I can't do that. And I just burst into tears, and I don't use tears to get my way, trust me. And I burst into tears. And he goes, okay, whoa. And he goes, I know you're stressed out. I know it's a terrible situation you're in. I'll go ahead and do that. And when I walked out, I didn't go, I was just like, wow. First of all, it never crossed my mind that he's the boss. I didn't go to him and tell him how I could organize stuff and get my way. And I never even saw that until I came out of untreated alcoholism. But what I did was one day, I drove that bus for 3 years. I never anticipated that. I ended up having a party for the kids at the end of school. I really made the best of it, even though I cried about every day driving that damn bus because it was early in the morning. Oh, my God, I was working my tail off. I cried a lot back then. My life was so stressful. But there were, and if you've heard my story, you've known this, but we're saying it again. When I drove the bus, I drove a gas bus because they go really fast, and I drive super fast all the time, breaking the law all the time because I like driving fast, and it is not objectionable to me. So I have a very fast sports car, and I drive fast. But I don't drive reckless, just for whatever it's worth. So I know you hear the irony in that. So when I'm on this gas bus, they kept trying to put me on a diesel bus. Well, they don't go fast. You push diesel and it had air conditioner, but I didn't care. I didn't want air conditioner. I wanted a gas bus. I wanted a fast bus. So there were these 2 humps, and then you came to a dead stop, and you had to take a right. And in a bus, you can go over these humps, and you can get those kids bumped nicely in the back of the bus. One time I had this group of first graders in the back of the bus. I think they were kindergarten and first, and I went down the wrong street. I didn't see it. You had to back the bus up, and there was those big stone, mailboxes. And so I told the kids, I said, look out the back, and if I get too close, just go, whoa. How difficult is that? So we back up, and I smash the mailbox, just crumble it. And I go, what the heck, guys? And this little girl goes, I didn't know what you wanted me to do. I thought, okay, it was a little too much for you. Okay. I got to call them. They got to come fix the bus. Fix the mailbox. And, it's just so humiliating. But this hill. So I'm going down this, I go down this hill, and the kids are always like, Miss Kate, go faster. Kids, I can't go faster. I'm going to get in trouble. I can't lose this job. And so one day I happen to look in the mirror when I'm over on Lisa Drive, and I see that it's all boys. Well, that was very unusual. All boys. One was my son. They're all in elementary school. I said, hey, guys, get to the back of the bus. I said, we're going to have some fun. I'm going to go over these humps. And they're back. And so all of a sudden, I gas that bus. No consideration. I look up, because your life is the mirror. I look up in the mirror, and I am getting air. I am getting air and more air and more air. And these kids are just like, and they're little. They're elementary, and they are all the way up to the top of the bus. And it was like my life was in slow motion. I'm like, and we're just still climbing, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, that moment where everything goes in slow motion. And then all of a sudden, when we came down, they dropped like rocks. And you heard this, the air brake go off and everything. And I swear to God, I thought, oh, my God, have I broken anybody's neck, a collarbone? What happened? And I look, and they go. And I thought, oh, my God, what just happened? So we go out of the bus because there was just a horrific noise. And we get out there, and I have blown all 4 valve stems off the back tires. That's that moment where you go, oh, my God. Oh, my God. These kids were like rats from a sinking ship, man. My son went over to Ben's house. Just like, ah! So I get on the horn, the radio, and I'm like, turtle bus to base. And Billy was the base manager, right? And he goes, "Oh, yeah, Turtle Boss, this is Billy." And the big boss man wore a radio on his hip. And I said, "Billy, I got bad news, man. I just blew all 4 valve stems off the back end of my bus, and I'm dead in the water right now." And he goes, the big boss man goes, "What?" Oh, it's like Dad yelling at you. Oh, God. Because I can't lose this job. I cannot lose this insurance. I can't afford Cobra. I'm barely getting by as it is. And so they said, "We'll be there in 15 minutes. And I mean, those 15 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, my mind is racing. And the boss man comes out, and he and Billy pull up in a white truck. Oh my God. And he stands there and the boss man looks at the wheels, looks up the hill, looks at the wheels, and he goes, "You don't know what happened?" And I swear to God, like I said, I can lie. You scare me bad enough. I said, "No, sir, I don't know what happened." And he goes, "Okay, Billy, take her back. I'll wait here for the tow truck." And it was just like, oh my God, Billy, I just sat there in the truck. Please don't talk to me. Oh my God, I'm such a liar. And what I realized when I came out of untreated alcoholism is, and I'm embarrassed to tell you, I did not make that amends for 15 years. Yeah, don't think you can't ever go back and make an amends. I had to find him. I had to tell a lie to find him, because the guy that, when I called the bus yard, the guy at the bus yard goes, "Why are you looking for him?" Well, I'm not about to tell this guy why I'm looking for him. And I said, "It's Thanksgiving, and he was a very helpful man, and I just want to tell him why I'm so thankful for him in my life." And he goes, "Well, I know him, and I'll call him." And I thought, okay, good. Once again, I'm not proud of these lies, guys, but I did what I needed to do. I couldn't find this guy. I don't do Facebook. I don't do social media. I don't have any of this stuff. I didn't even know how to spell his last name right. And so he calls me. Now, here's the important part of the amends. The amends is not that I lied. The amends is that he knew I lied, and I made him step out of his values, his integrity, and his respect for what his job was to protect the children. Try to get them to school on time and protect the children. I just flew in the face of that. He was a good Christian man. And he goes, so hey, how are you doing? I said, "Oh my gosh, it's been so long." And I start just kind of BSing my way through, and he goes, "Kate, what is it?" I thought, and you're just, I'm pacing. I had my notes written right there in case I needed to kind of start looking at them, what I was going to say, because you get nervous. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "The day that I blew those valve stems off the back end of the bus." And he started to laugh. And it was so long. I thought, "Oh, you're killing me, Holmes." And then he said, "Yes, I do," after it seemed like 3 minutes of laughing. And I said, "Well, I lied." And he said, "I knew you lied." And I said, "Well, more than that," I don't want to say his name, "more than that, so-and-so, I just want you to know that what I did is I had you step outside your values, your integrity, all the things that you believed in and what your job represented to you, and you allowed me to stay on that job, and I could have hurt those children. I could have killed a kid. I really could have. They flew so high and dropped like rocks. It was really bad. It was almost like driving a speedboat too fast and turning and shooting 3 of them out the back. You're like, whoa! It was just irresponsible and terrible. And he said, "Kate," he goes, "I quit that job so I could take care of my mother. I love my mother with all my heart, and she was dying." And wait, it just gets so moving. He goes, "And you always reminded me of my mom." And he said, "I knew that you were going through some really tough times, and I knew that you needed this job, and you would never do that again." And he said, "I knew that about you." And he goes, "But more than anything, the fact that you would call and tell me that has just restored my faith in humanity." I know it. And I said, "Oh, man," I'm going to call him Bill. That's not his name. I said, "Oh, Bill, this is so special." And he said, "Thank you so much for that." And he had just lost his mom. And I said, "I'm so sorry about your mother," and asked about his brother. And then we ended the call. It was no more than 15 minutes. But it was really, really moving. And I knew I needed to make that amends forever. And I should never have put it off that long. But I did. And it was amazing. I got one more amends, and then Then we're going to wrap this thing up. My dad and I, as I said, we fought like cats and dogs. And it was terrible. When I left home at 15, when he said, if you can't live under the rules of this house, you can't live here, I really saw that as a ticket out, and I never went back. And I didn't talk to my dad for months after that, and I made him pay because that's what we do. And my dad never did anything wrong to me. He never laid a hand on me. There was never any sexual abuse. As a matter of fact, he was a partying guy. He put on Inkelbert Humperdinck. And when my mom died, we had the house piped with music. It was the 60s and early 70s, and I mean, life was great. And he would come in and he'd wake us up playing a broom, and all this stuff. And it was he just made it fun. And I just caused so much problems. And when I came out of untreated alcoholism, and I had that vision of me telling my dad how badly he screwed my life up, and he said he effed up, I was in so much pain that I just could not stop crying. I tried everything. He was cremated, so I tried, writing the letter, going the place, doing all the things. None of it gave me any relief. None of it. And I just could not believe my dad and I were so much alike, and I loved him so much, and I never got to tell him what a great job he did. Because you see, I think this is all about family. It's all about building that bridge back. It was all a lie, what my dad did. He never really did that to me. I just had these lenses that were filthy, and they saw it all wrong. And so what ended up happening, he had died in a surgery gone wrong when he was 72, and God told me in my morning time to go see my stepmom, because I'd written that whole family off. This was the third woman my dad had married, and she'd stuck with us, and she had 2 kids of her own. And I raised hell at one family reunion. She and I were saying F you to each other because I bring in just white trash. That's what I was. I just got to all kinds of family. I just was raising hell all the time. Sober. This is sober. And I said, I'm not going to her. No. Give me another way I can handle it with my dad, but I'm not going to my stepmom. And the next day, said it again. Heard the still, quiet voice, you need to go to your mother. And I'm like, really? I just would prefer to leave that door shut. Don't really want to go back into that world. And so I thought, okay, fine. So I'm going to my sponsor. I know what I'm going to say. I know what I'm going to do. And I call my mom, and I tell her she lives in San Antonio, about an hour away. I call her and tell her I'd like to come talk to her if that'd be okay. We don't get into, oh, hey, how you been? My family, we never played any games. Like nothing happened. We were real clear on that. And she said, I'd love to see you. So I tell Charlie, do you mind if I throw you under the bus? No, you don't. Were you awake over there? You're tired. Is it okay if I do it? Okay. So I tell Charlie that I'm going to go make the amends.
She always accuses me of trying to pack too much stuff in.
Oh, yeah. Well, now remember. And he goes, honey, the Cowboys training camp is in San Antonio. I am so emotional about this amends. And I'm like, do you see anybody who cares less about the Cowboys at this moment? You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, that's really groovy, but I don't think I'm going to be swinging by and watching them at training camp, honey. I'm going to go make an amends to my stepmother, whom I have not seen in years, about my dad and I's relationship. And he goes, okay, sorry. So I go, and I'm a nervous wreck. I'm getting ready to go up to the door. I've brought some sandwiches and everything. And I get up to that door at that apartment she lives in. And you guys, if you've gone and made these amends, you just can hardly breathe. You're so nervous. And she opened the door, and I just fell apart. She had gotten so much older. She was so thin. She was a model before. She was a beautiful woman. And I just felt so horrible for how I treated them. Just terrible. In sobriety. It's just wrong, folks. It's wrong. And so she said, oh, sit down. And I am crying, and I'm trying to get this out. And I'm saying, and then when Dad, told me I couldn't live in the house, and then when I yelled at you at the reunion, and I'm going through the whole list of everything. And I start to tell her how thoughtless and inconsiderate it was. And it was just so unfair. They were just trying to help me. And she said, now stop it. She was tough. She was half Indian. She goes, stop it. Your father loved you. You need to stop this nonsense, Kate. And I remembered thinking, okay, you got my attention now. And she said, your dad loved you. You made it so difficult all the time. And I don't know what my agenda ever was, but I think I kind of came out of the womb pissed. And we made up. I made an amends to my stepbrother, stepsister. They all just graciously invited me back into their life. I got to go to the wedding. I got to bring my grandkids. It was just an amazing situation. My stepsister made me the whatever it is, the legal guardian of my stepmom when she was out of town in case she had a health issue. Me. I have 2 other siblings, and I got to be the one that had that honor. And it was just incredible. I mean, the amends process itself was amazing. Of course, Charlie, when I'm calling him to tell him, I can't believe I've done it, and I'm just crying and crying. He goes, did you go by and see the Cowboys? And I said, you know, honey, I think I'm going to call my sponsor. She'll probably give me a little bit more on this. Now, this was back, it was a little different back then. And but those are some of the most moving and emotional amends ever. And I lied. I have one more. I know you're tired, but I got one more, and I swear to God, that's it. I in the business world, I cut people's legs off. If my company said, Katie, we don't really need them, I went and took them out. Now, granted, that's not exactly how the company was telling me. That's how I heard it, but I would take the person out. Well, this one particular woman, we were doing this photo shoot for a catalog, and for whatever reason, she just was a highfalutin New Yorker, and she was out in California, and she did a big shindig. You know, we had the whole layout, the clothes numbered, and the whole photo shoot for the catalog, and I happened to be picked to get in it. I'm all flattered, but my world's falling apart with Joe, and so I end up doing the first shoot, and then I come back out, and I've got about 6 other shoots, and all my name's off everything. And I'm like, what just happened? And so I go to the president of the company who's in the photo shoot, and she goes, you know, sometimes, Katie, they just see things differently, and I guess she changed her mind. Well, you just don't do that to me. You don't just change your mind. What in the world did I do wrong? I didn't like her anyway. She didn't like me. I mean, it was just kind of, you know, those personalities where you meet and you just go, let's just keep moving. I ended up blowing that woman's world up. I had the president on my side. I had all the daughter of the president, everybody. I could not get a hold of my emotions. I was so angry and so hurt. And how could she do this? And I photograph well. What's the problem? I blew the whole thing out of proportion. And I caused her real grief on a day that I can't even imagine what putting one of those photo shoots on is all about. I mean, it's a big deal. And I didn't make that amends for 12 years. And when I was in a big deal in Vegas. I was speaking out there for my company. I'd already retired. And it was probably 5 years ago. And there's about 3,500 instructors there. And this particular woman, I saw her. And every time I'd try to get close to her, she'd just squirt out. And I just couldn't get close to her. And Charlie, I called him, and he said, have you had a chance to make that amends? I said, no, she's not even letting me get close to her. And I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to, you know, God, I tried, and I guess it's just not going to happen. And you know how big the Vegas bathrooms are? I mean, they're the size of a goddamn football stadium when you walk in there, right? I mean, they're huge at Caesar's Palace. And something was going on, and everybody was in their little, wherever they needed to be, and I walk in this bathroom, and she walks out of the stall. It's just me and her, nobody else. And I swear to God, she comes out of the stall, and she goes, you know, and I thought, oh, well, here it is. I mean, I really damaged this woman badly. She could care less if I lived or died. And I told her, I said, oh my God, can I have a minute with you? And she goes, oh, Katie, everything's fine. Everything's fine. You know, la, 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 la. And she's all nervous and everything. I said, oh my gosh, please give me just 1 minute to share with you how sorry I am of how I blew your world up 12 years ago. And I went into all of what I did to her world that day. And I said, you worked so hard to do that. And in comes me, the punk that I am. I come in and I just throw a tantrum in the middle of it. I pit people against you. I mean, I went into this whole thing. She starts crying, and I mean, she is crying. And she was like, it was so terrible. I said, I know it was terrible. Please let me continue to tell you how I have wronged you in this way. And we went into it for, maybe 4 minutes. You know, it wasn't a whole long fall on your sword deal. And the next thing you know, she gave me this huge hug, and it was really amazing. But what happened for the rest of the weekend is every time I'd walk in the room, she'd pat the chair next to her and go, And then, bless her heart, she has a brain tumor. Oh, go figure. She has a brain tumor, and come to find out, she's starting to lose all her memory of anything. And I'd sent her some flowers, and I didn't check to see if she got them, or told 9 people that I did that. But I just sent her flowers, and wishing her well. It was probably about 5 years later, and it was kind of one of those moments where it's like, wow, God, you just heal all the things. If I'll go out there and make these amends, which I got to tell you guys are extremely difficult to do, to get up the courage to go do them. But they are the most moving parts of anyone's story. And they restore your faith in you, the person. It restores their faith in humanity, and it has a huge effect on the whole world. Thank you so much. Woo, we're done. Hot dog.